Hello and welcome to the video news of Saigon Times. I'm Đình Dung with the program Chat with CEO. Our guest today is Mr. David Jackson, Chief Executive of Colliers Vietnam. Mr. Jackson has a broad and diverse level of expertise in business management and capital markets, valuation, transitional management, and property management. Thank you, Mr. Jackson, for accepting our invitation for the program. Our topic today, we focus on the property market on the Covid-19 pandemic. Yeah, okay. First of all, we would like to hear from you the overall market. You know, after easing for the short time, the Covid-19 come back again, bringing more worry and difficulty to the economy, and the property markets has no exception. So as a market observer, what do you comment? How do you foresee the scenario of the market?
Yeah, well, first of all, Jung, thanks very much for you and the Saigon Times for allowing me to come and speak to you today. I really appreciate the opportunity. You know, where do I start? Well, COVID-19, you know, clearly a global issue. It's affected many people around the world. It just not just in terms of real estate, but in terms of you know, jobs, finances, people being furloughed on staff, increase in mental health issues and things like that. And so I think many people have suffered during this time, and there is which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute, a new normal that's coming from that, not just in business, but also in real estate and the way that people behave. On a positive note, COVID has also changed the way we do business and communicate. A lot more kind of people talking online, a lot more connectivity, a lot more people concerned about people's health and well-being. But in real estate, well, let's start by saying, first of all, that, you know, Vietnam has done extremely well in the control of the spread of COVID-19. I think it's the rising star in terms of Asia, in terms of foreign investors looking into Vietnam and seeing the control of that and actually looking at differently about maybe it's a really investable country to invest in. I guess there's good and bad points with real estate and COVID-19. First of all, you know, people must talk about hospitality with limited international travel, restrictions going on. A lot of the five-star hotels have gone into survival mode. And so what they're looking for here is just literally to cut back on staff, cut back on some of the services that they do, maybe offer some strong incentives for people to go there, just in order to survive. Which is difficult for staffing and maintaining staff levels. In Vietnam, there's a really strong domestic market for internal travel. If people can travel, and the restrictions are there. So the 2- and 3-star segment is still okay. It's still surviving. And, you know, I guess a lot of... So I think it will do okay. And as COVID kind of gets more restricted, more controlled, and international travel opens up, it will be better for the hotels. I think they're becoming a lot more smarter about how they earn their money now, and they've looked at their plans. In terms of the office market, like all markets in Vietnam at the moment, there is a sort of undersupply and over-demand. So the landlords have, basically it's still a landlord's market, and although they've allowed tenants restrictions in terms of the amount of rent furlough, there's very little incentives there. There's still a very strong market. Most office buildings in Ho Chi Minh City or Hanoi are still 90% occupied. Residential market, well, the sales are still pretty robust. You know, people, Vietnamese, are investing in residential, healthcare, obviously after COVID-19, education. And so people are still wanting to invest in real estate. The prices are still going up. There has been a little delay because of COVID-19, because of launch and events and social distancing. And people are still investing in residential because they see improvements in infrastructure that will put the prices up. So the long and short of it is that actually Vietnam is still very investable. And I think that while COVID has restrictions there, Vietnamese have shown themselves to be adaptable and still invest in property. So the outlook is still pretty positive.
Okay.
If that helps.
You just mentioned the price. Let's talk more about the housing rise.
Yeah.
Yeah, despite facing a lot of difficulty, the market has seen the housing price unchanged. Even in some segment, it
Sure.
increased. Do you know why?
Yeah, sure. I mean, interesting question. In the first question, just as an overview of Vietnam, we didn't talk about industrial or investment opportunities there, but it's still the same principle. There are markets in Vietnam that are undersupplied and over-demanded. And I guess it's the same with residential. Vietnam has a population of, in the last census, 95 million people, and there's a change in the demographics of the way that people live. So the old traditional townhouse with 3 floors, a shop on the bottom, your grandparents and your parents and yourself living in the same building has changed. There's a movement for people to move away from that type of housing and into apartments. And there's not enough apartments. It's quite simply with the urbanization happening, a high disposable income, people are kind of still wanting to buy good premises to live and good investment opportunities. A lot of the projects that are available at the moment as well, the way that the profile that they're selling, is a lot of speculators are buying the market to make a quick return on investment. So they're buying at a lower discounted rate, multiple properties, and then they're trying to sell those on as the price increases, the capital appreciation of the projects increase. And there's also improvements of law that are helping the investors and finances in terms of the banks. There's better controls on lending rates. So I think Vietnam's in a very positive way at the moment. Developers are getting a lot smarter in the projects that they do. There's a lot of confidence in the market now. So apart from the slowdown of social distancing with COVID, actually, it's still very positive. Yeah.
I don't know elsewhere in the world, but in Vietnam, home buyers prefer to come to the residential project to see what's going on.
Sure.
They want to interact face to face with broker, with agent.
Yeah.
So how could developers sell their product in the context of social distancing?
Sure. Well, look, I think technology is moving into every part of our lives. I'm still very much a people person, and I believe, like you said, I want to talk to a broker. I want to get the experience from a broker, look into their eyes and feel the confidence of what they're selling. But actually, social distancing, the new normal, looking at it, there are more technological ways, and you see movements in technology coming on board to make the access of information on projects and sell the story on projects a lot easier. So social media is increasing. A lot of people looking at Facebook, a lot of people varying in Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Developers are looking at every way to get the message out there. There are social media videos, there's apps that people have. Vin Group, for example, have an app where you can look at buying on their projects and things like that. So there are 360-degree views of apartments. There's a lot of investment from hedge funds at the moment that are looking at maps or location of how to sell online, second housing. So I think times are changing quite a lot, and so yes, I still personally like to go to an event and look at how they're selling it. But actually, as long as the message has been put out there, and a lot of developers are doing that through technology and access to buy, then I think there's many options out there at the moment.
Besides buyer looking for a house to live in, there are a lot of investors that are there in the market.
Sure.
How are they in the new circumstance? And is there any change in their sentiment?
Sure. Okay. Well, look, it's a broad question. There are many different types of investor at the moment. There's institutional investors, personal investors, and people have to know what their different investment profile is, what they're comfortable with in terms of how much funds they put in. They need to know a good plan about their exit strategy, what's their risk profile. But if you look at the normal person, that is buying an apartment, you can have two options there. Some people buy apartments to live in, and it's an emotional decision for your friends and your family to come over there and look at your house as it grows over time. And others are speculators and investors that are just buying the property in order to sell it to somebody else and make a margin or a profit. In both cases, in the speculators case, actually one of the statistics that came out is a lot of the people that are buying at the moment are speculators in the market. They're not end users. And so they're taking advantage of what we call a bullet and a bubble payment. Bullet and a bubble payment is where the purchase of new build properties, they pay a little fee up front, maybe 5% of the sales price, another 5%, another 5%, which is the bullet payment. And then at the end, the final payment maybe is very large, maybe 40% of the sales, the bubble payment. And so the speculators are trying to come in here and move the properties that's going up in value without putting down much money. But what they don't want to do is have it at the big payment at the end. And so a lot of people now, there's a lot more choice in the market, there's a lot more properties coming that are available for people. So the secondary sale of that might be quite difficult. And so the speculators need to be sure of the project and what they want to do and the ability to sell and their risk profile. So they should know the good developer, they should know good facilities in terms of the services and have a plan. You know, it's not a case where they follow everybody into buying one property, push the price up, and then nobody wants to buy it. So being careful is probably the best thing, and knowing what you're buying, what your profile is.
According to you, which segment are worth investing in? Landed property or apartment?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so again, going back to it, it depends on your investment profile.
Okay.
So landed property generally is more expensive and more complicated in the transaction because you're looking at land use rights, not just for the property but for the land itself. Apartment purchases, again, are probably a lot more simple. The developer's there to help you, guide you along that process. Now, the landed process could be quite difficult for the secondary market in secondary sales. So again, an investor must know what their strategy is with it, whether they want to live there and have over time capital appreciation in terms of what's going on and selling it. But it's less liquid. It's more difficult to sell that going on. Apartments, developers, like I say, can work with you. There's foreign quotas. And you could also, it's probably a lot easier because it's a lower rental rate or a lower rental yield to rent to when the market opens up, to rent to foreigners or maybe even Airbnb or something like that where you can get a return on investment. But again, investors, they can also invest in the stock exchange, they can also invest in lots of other things. Also in apartments, the new launch, the price generally on new launches compared to old apartments are a lot higher, which means that the rental yield you could get is also, so you have to understand what you're looking at and what you're investing in. Like that's always the secret. Or speak to a good consulting firm that can guide you on that, like Colliers.
Now we are living in the new normal, as you said, new normal situation. Mm-hmm. Is there any chance for investors who want to serve the market for profit?
Is there new opportunities? I think that especially in Vietnam, there's opportunities in everywhere at the moment. And so investors should be very confident in terms of what they're doing. I think that as long as you have an idea on your profile and what you want to invest in, there is options out there for you. And again, Colliers can help guide you on that. Short-term investors, however, there are a few issues. So short-term, these speculators, they need to be wary of what the price is on the property. It's okay for a developer to have a launch price that is good, high to the market, and then give a 20% discount. That doesn't mean that it's actually worth the launch price. And so they need to be also understand about the sales payment terms, short-term investors. So Often, like I said, these bullet payments, they're put against maybe 1 month, 2 month payment, but it would be better to put it on the project's construction milestones. That way it's linked to the development rather than just the time. They need to understand about proof of funds and how they pay. Obviously, there are tax reasons, different way that you pay could cause you different problems. And like I said, for short-term investors, really knowing what the contract is, really knowing what the facilities are, really knowing what the developers, location, reputation, facilities can make it easier to sell to somebody else. In terms of investors that are looking to it, I think the market is always going up here at the moment. There is a long way for it to go. If you're happy and you have the money to hold on to a project and see the capital appreciation over time, then I think there's opportunities everywhere. It's really down to the individual investor. But what they should be is really looking and being confident in Vietnam. You know, Vietnam is doing an amazing job at the moment. It is the rising star of Asia. So right now, investing in Vietnam there's amazing opportunities. Even looking at foreigners, once they come back into Vietnam, you know, the Japanese government is giving incentives for investing outside of China and Hong Kong, and Vietnam's probably one of the key places to do that. So we're getting a lot more international investors that are looking at opportunities, and I think for smart investors in real estate, I think it's a good place to invest in.
How about the profit expectation?
The profit expectation, well, again, it depends on what you're investing in and how you're investing it. I think a lot of the speculators are looking for a quick increase in value and the market and then a sale. I think long-term investors are investing in properties where there might be infrastructure improvements or roadways that over time are going to double the value or treble the value. So it depends on what people want to invest in. Yeah, so, you know, opportunities everywhere.
One important thing is home loan interest rate, which decreased relatively low right now.
Yeah.
Do you think that investors should use financial leverage at this time?
Well, look, you know, any smart investor would use financial leverage. You know, why use your money when you can utilize the benefit of somebody else and mutually benefit from that? But yeah, home loans. So Vietnam is very interesting. Vietnam, when I first came here 14 years ago, was pretty up and down in the way it looked at controlling currency, the way it looked at controlling loans, finances, banks. You know, but still, the Vietnamese buyer at the moment, percentage-wise of purchase, loan very small amounts from the bank in terms of money that they can do. A foreigner can only, at the moment, loan from a bank on how long that they're allowed to reside in Vietnam. But the way that the government is, you can see with COVID, the way that they're looking at the control of that, they're doing the same with banking. They're doing the same with the legal structure here. It's decree law here. So there's a lot more control on the way that the loan to value ratio that banks can give to people. There are also other alternatives here that you can look at. There are private funds that also you can borrow money from, and it's a financial play for them in terms of what they're doing. So there's a lot more opportunities out there. However, the current Vietnamese purchaser or investor very much utilizes just their own capital at the moment. Often, for example, you know, people still get married here very young. You know, you're married yourself, but they got married very young, and a lot of times the family comes together and they help the new couple start in life, and often that's an investment in real estate. So it would be my expectation that as the investor gets smarter, that they utilize other funds a lot better. The banks kind of loan a bit more, but I think at the moment it's still quite limited in terms of the loan rate. The loan rate will go down, that's for sure. So yeah.
You know, Vietnam is now speeding up the vaccination program. What if the pandemic prolongs?
What if, culturally or in terms of property?
In terms of property.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. I think going into 2019, 2020, I don't think anyone saw a global pandemic on the horizon. I wish I had a crystal ball, and invested in face masks and hand sanitizer. But actually, look, what if the pandemic on a serious issue? What if it continues? Well, I think Vietnam itself, like I said, there's opportunities, there's growth here. It's very successful in the way that it's handling the COVID and the new normal. Culturally wise, I think that the government is stabilized. It was a pre-elections election year, nominee year this year recently. So going forward, there's a lot more investor confidence into Vietnam. So it's strong, it's under control. There's also massive amounts of investment in infrastructure. And when you invest in infrastructure, new roads, ports, airports and things like that, it means that an area is going to go up in value. The more people that can have access to it, the more it goes up in value. I think if COVID's prolonged, it will obviously impact hotel and the resort sector. But I think corridors will open up that will allow transport once people get vaccinated and the flow's there. So I think the way that Vietnam at the moment, I couldn't think of any other country to be in which is so under controlled at the moment that yes, it might continue. And I think it will be a problem for many countries around the world. But I think where we're at in Vietnam, it's the rising star of Asia. I think it doesn't matter what segment you're in, we're still developing, we're still growing, there's still profits to be made, there's still opportunities. So I think, yes, it's going to be a problem, as is everywhere else. But I think there's still, Vietnam's the place to invest in and look in.
I have a last question for you.
Sure.
Do you have any advice for investor during this special time?
Do I have any advice for investor? I've always got advice for investor, and I think about it myself. Look, I think any investor, whether it be institutional or corporate, they need to know what their limitations, what their profile is. So as mentioned, they need to know what their cash flow is, what their financial ability is. They need to know what their investment risk is. I think if they're investing in real estate, they have to look at what they have to understand the project, have to understand what they're investing in. Mm-hmm. If you're investing in land without an income to it, they have to hold on to the land for a long time before they can work out what their exit strategy is. Unless they're buying land and they know that some development's happening, and then maybe they can realize that investment sooner. If they're buying an apartment, is it as an investor to live in and to look at that and have capital appreciation over time, or is it to buy and kind of move the sales price quickly? So they need to understand the project, what they're investing in, and their exit strategy. Often people don't understand what their exit strategy is over time, and they get tied up financially in projects. Also, it's worth mentioning, so apart from looking and understanding the financial situation, investment risk, and the project, is also to look at alternative opportunities in Vietnam. There are a lot more people that are investing in not just Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi and Da Nang. They're looking at a lot more smarter changes around what's happening in the area. So in the south, places like Dong Nai, Bin Nhung, in places like Phan Thiet, where big developers like Nova Land are coming in with projects and developing loads. There's a lot of ways to look at that is not just the normal. There are projects that are happening that could have a greater uplift because you can buy the land at a cheaper price, or the option at a cheaper price. So again, looking for alternatives. And I guess just to finish on a shameless plug, but I think that's what Colliers do well. We can help guide people in terms of their investment, their strategy, and how to exit properly to make a profit.
The property market has many things to talk about, but the time for the program is limited. So we stop here, and we'll come back soon with another topic. Thank you, Mr. Jackson,
you very much
for sharing your experience about the property market. And let's hope that the coronavirus will soon be controlled so that the property market will come back as normal.
Yes, sure. Thanks very much for the time today. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye and see you next video.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.